There's something about this whole Browns situation that, honestly, isn't really about the quarterback, at least not in the way we're used to thinking about it. Because when you look at the current setup, Shedeur Sanders coming off a pretty rough season, Watson trying to bounce back from 2 major Achilles injuries, and Dylan Gabriel still nowhere near consistent, you start to realize Cleveland isn't just looking for the guy. They're kind of stuck, man. No real offensive identity. And that's where Taylon Green's name starts to make sense. Just not in the obvious way. Let's set the stage first. The Browns walked into this offseason with that weird feeling. They've got names, but no real security. None of these quarterbacks gives you that, all right, we're good here vibe. And for a team that still wants to compete, that's a big-time problem. Shedeur Sanders, who was supposed to take that year 2 leap, basically ended up near the bottom of the PFF grades. Watson, man, who even knows if his body can hold up for a full season anymore. And Gabriel, being real about it, looks more like a serviceable backup than an actual answer. So when the idea of bringing in someone like Taylon Green pops up, it's not because he fixes the problem, it's because he changes the kind of problem you have. Because Green isn't your typical developmental quarterback. Dude's a freak. 6'6", crazy speed for the position, 40 time in the same conversation as Lamar Jackson and Michael Vick. That's not something you see every year. And when a guy like that shows up, teams always get tempted to roll the dice, even with the obvious flaws. And yeah, those flaws are real. Big time. Turnovers, inconsistent reads, risky decisions. This isn't small stuff. This is exactly what gets QBs buried in the NFL. But here's where things shift. Todd Monken. If you know Monken's work, especially what he did with Lamar, you know he doesn't run a rigid offense. He's all about creating advantages, using players as weapons, not just sticking them in a traditional role. That's where Green starts to make sense. Not as the answer, but as a piece. Think about it. You don't need him to be QB1. You don't even need him reading defenses at a high level right now. You need him to show up in specific situations and stress the hell out of defenses. Wildcat, red option. Designed plays to exploit physical mismatches. Now defenses have to spend time prepping for something that might only show up 5 to 6 snaps a game. But those 5 plays, they can flip an entire drive. That's value, dog pound. Now let's be real, there's risk here too. Because once you start using a guy as a weapon before he's a complete quarterback, you can stunt his development. He becomes a gadget guy, and it's tough to come back from that label. On top of that, his issues aren't minor tweaks. It's not, fix his footwork and he's good. Nah, it's reads, decision-making, consistency, things that don't always improve. So the real question is, are the Browns actually equipped to develop a guy like this? Because raw talent alone ain't enough. You need structure, patience, and a clear plan. And let's not kid ourselves. Cleveland hasn't exactly crushed it developing quarterbacks lately. Now let's talk scenarios, because this is where it gets interesting. Best case? Green becomes that dangerous hybrid. A guy you plug into specific packages, creates chaos, slowly improves as a passer, and maybe, just maybe, turns into something bigger down the line. He doesn't need to start right away. He can be a tactical weapon first. Worst case, he never figures out the mental side, keeps making mistakes, and ends up just another elite athlete who can't translate to the league. Then you've burned a pick, development time, and you're right back where you started. Most likely, he contributes in specialty packages, becomes a fun wrinkle in the offense, but never truly threatens to be the full-time starter. Now my take. I like the idea, just not as a quarterback solution. I like it as a strategic swing. Because right now, the Browns aren't in a position to pass on rare talent. They don't have a locked-in QB. They don't have a clear offensive identity. So taking a shot on something different might be exactly what they need to shake things up. But this only works if they're honest about it. He's not the savior. If they go into this thinking, we'll develop him into the guy, that's setting up for disappointment. But if they see him as a piece, a tactical experiment with upside, then yeah, it makes sense. And here's something not enough people are talking about. This move would say a lot about how the Browns feel about their current QB room. Because when you start looking at players like this, you're basically admitting Plan A doesn't really convince you. And honestly, from the outside looking in, that tracks. So let me throw it to you, Dog Pound. Do you bring in Talon Green, knowing he might never be a true quarterback, but could be a unique weapon? Or do you think the Browns need to stop messing around and just find a traditional QB? Because depending on that answer, you're talking about completely different directions for this team over the next few years.